of sharing. Durian ASEAN.
Hi, this is Arlene and you're listening to Durian ASEAN. We are here with you, Amlir, Ayat. How are you, by the way?
Good. How are you, Eileen?
Oh, I'm fine. For today, you're going to talk about a topic that is very close to the hearts of Malaysians, especially Selangorians, because you're going to talk about the issue relating to the austerity of the water crisis in this country, Malaysia. Hello?
Yep, I'm here.
So, do you think we are facing a water crisis here? I mean, of course, we know that a few months back we have a water shortage issue where the government have to ration the water usage among the people in Selangor. But do we think we will be facing a huge water crisis?
Okay, this is the definition of water crisis is an issue, quite an issue, because especially at the national level, once we recognize that there is a crisis, we need to do something about it, which may involve a lot of resources, especially with regards to money, time, and human. Okay, and different people have different definitions or standards or opinions of what is a water crisis. So the definition itself is a crisis. Now, it is not a standard term, even though it is widely used. Normally, it simply means a big problem or issue.
Mm-hmm.
To some, this problem means we do not have enough water supply for daily purposes. This is what they mean by crisis. Now, to some, it means the rivers and other water resources, such as lakes and groundwater, are polluted. And of course, there could be other definitions or understandings as well. So it differs from one person to another, but it needs to be standardized. Now, to cut it short, as far as I am concerned, water crisis means we have a problem with supplying enough water for our social and economic needs at a continuous rate. Now, this is important since water is the most important and crucial resource to humans. So we need to have a continuous supply of clean water. Now, what do we mean by rate? Now, the rate, as far as Malaysia is concerned, the standard is 225 liters per person per day. Okay? So my answer right now is that at this very moment, we do not have a crisis in principle. But that doesn't mean that we need not do something about it. Otherwise, we are going to have a water crisis if we do not do something about it. So one from the other point of somebody from another point of view, with another point of view could say that we do have a water crisis because for that person we have a management problem. For example, we have water pollution. So they may have different point of views about what water crisis is. But for me, as for now, at this moment, we do not yet have a water crisis. But yes, a few months ago, yes, we do have a water crisis because we need to ration our water where it affects, at any given time, about 1/3 of the population of Klang Valley was affected. That means about 1 million out of about 3 million people in the Klang Valley were affected by the water rationing.
Mm-hmm. So, do you think the El Nino season that will be coming to this region in Southeast Asia will affect the water issue in this country?
You mean the weather? Or?
The weather, the El Nino weather pattern, where there's the weather would be extremely dry for a certain season because of the movement of the hot air.
Yeah, the El Nino, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course, it's going to have a certain effect, but it depends on the water management. How do we manage water? If we can manage our water efficiently, then we may not have a problem at all. But the problem, like I said just now, to some people, we have a crisis because we have a management problem. Now, this management problem may encompass a lot of things. Either you're talking about supplying the water itself, or managing the demand from the users, from the water users itself.
Why do you think Malaysians are still quite wasteful in the way we use water?
Yeah, I think, okay, like I said just now, the rate, or what we call the rate of consumption per person per day in Malaysia is standardized at 225 liters. That means whenever we design a system, let's say a water supply system for the population, we design it to enable the consumption at that rate. If you have, let's say, 10 person or 4 person in a house, then the water tank will be designed for 2 days of water consumption at 225 liters per person per day. 225, okay, this is going to be a bit technical. 225 liters times 4 people times 2 days.
I see.
But 225, that we call that per capita, 225 liters per capita. Now, that is quite a big amount, 225 liters per day. Why do I say that? Now, the global standard for water consumption per person is about 180 to 200. That is the World Health Organization's standard. That means they have determined that at 180, a person can survive with 180 liters to 200 liters per day. Okay, but in Malaysia, we put it up higher, about at least 25 liters per person per day. Now, that is already an extra amount of consumption there given to Malaysia.
Yeah.
But the truth is that based on the recent figures given by a minister, the average rate of water consumption for each Malaysian is at about 300 liters per person per day.
It's like almost double.
Yes, it's almost double than the actual rate. Even for the standard rate for Malaysians, it's already about 75 liters extra per person. So we are wasting a lot.
Where do you think this water went from when it comes to the way Malaysian use water? Is it they use it for, is it because of the daily consumption of Malaysian people in general, or because of the usage by big industries in this country, factories and all that?
It's a very, what do you call this, we need to tackle this issue in a holistic manner. We are talking about individuals and also companies. I think both sectors, both individuals and the industrial entities are using too much water. Now, for example, like I said, where does this come from, this extra usage of water? I think Malaysians generally, not all of them, generally, many of us think that there is a lot of water in Malaysia. We take water for granted. And we see a lot of water coming out of the tap. Whenever we turn our tap, we turn it to the max, even though we don't need that much of water. When we wash our cars, we tend to wash our cars, let's say, some of us wash our cars twice a week. And that is too much. We don't need to wash our cars. The engine will not get broken even if you don't wash your car for 2 weeks or a month, okay? It depends on how you use the engine. We are more interested in how the car looks,
I see.
Okay? And the problem was made worse during the water rationing. I know there are people who wash their cars even though other parts of the state or the Klang Valley faced water rationing. Now, we have to remember that we are using water from the same reservoirs, okay? Now, when we use a lot of water, that is going to affect other people also, okay? So that means that we have to be very careful. During the water rationing, we have to remember that there are other people who cannot have water supply, whose water is rationed, for about 55 hours,
Mm-hmm.
while to allow us to have enough water. So we have to be very, very careful. Now, I believe that, okay, let's do some basic calculation here, okay? Like I said just now, we are consuming we are consuming at the rate of about 300 liters per day per person in Malaysia, per capita, okay? Now, let's say we stick to the 225 liters per day. We use that amount of water. That means we are saving about 25 to 150 liters per person per day. Now, that could come up to about 450 million liters per day saving.
I see.
If we could use water to that standard global amount. Okay, global standard amount. Now, 450 million liters per day means we could survive. Klang Valley population, 3 million of us, could survive with another 150 days without rain.
Mm-hmm.
If we can save our water. If we save our water, if we use only about 200 or 180 liters per day. Now,
Mm-hmm.
so I believe that this is one of the main reasons why we have water crisis, especially in Klang Valley, because the dam was designed to provide water for the population at a certain amount, but we are using more than that amount designed per person. So we cannot avoid this crisis, especially during the El Nino.
Okay. So, what are the steps that you think Malaysians should do in terms of trying to prevent another water crisis happening?
Okay. Let's at the individual level. I think one of the main principles that we have, or one of the main things that we have to understand, is to use water only when necessary or needed. Okay, we cannot afford to have another water crisis just because we use our water unnecessarily. Okay, that means we cannot waste even a single drop of water. We have to know when to use our water and how much to use. Okay,
But do you think the government should put a cap on the maximum daily use for every household?
Well, I think it's too early for us to do that, and we do not know that some individuals may need to use more than 200 liters per day. So, but the most important thing for us is to educate the population that we have to use water wisely and do not overweight, do not overconsume, or do not waste.
So I guess the best lesson is to personally regulate yourself rather than having government to impose all the rules, isn't it?
Of course, correct, Arlene. Yeah, I think that is very important, and we have to also take the action to improve or to strengthen our education system so that even in the preschool years, children and students have to be educated about water. It's not about environment, but it's about life. This is about living. This is about how to survive, especially during dry season. We have to educate people that water is a very precious element and is not infinite. It is a very limited supply. We have only certain amount of water in Malaysia, but the population is growing and the economic activities are growing. So we need to be very careful with water. At schools, children have to be emphasized on this, and they need to be shown what can be done to save water, to use water. What are the daily activities that we need to do, that we need to be aware of when we use water, and what are the actions to do in order to save water, to reduce our water consumption.
So we will take a short break, but we will return back with more discussion. Just stay tuned.
Okay.
The voice of sharing. Durian ASEAN.
we are returning back. This is Arlene signing in. Continue our discussion today on the topic of the austerity of the water crisis in Malaysia. So, are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
So, Amlir, early on we discussed about what Malaysians can do to regulate themselves, but I want to know more about industries, huge industries. I mean, they need water, especially for their plants and factories, and even for their for plantations as well, all the commodity crops and all that. So how can the government regulate these companies without, jeopardizing the operations of these companies?
Okay, I believe that the companies are also doing their best to improve their water usage for their industries. But at the same time, we have to also look at various opportunities, explore the various possibilities on how this water consumption could be regulated at a sustainable level, at the minimum level, without sacrificing the quality or the economic benefits of those industries. The government and also the industries have to work together to improve the use of green technology. They have to look for more ways, continuously do the research and development or the R&D to look for ways on how they could minimize or could use water sustainably. For example, first there have to be efforts to reduce the water consumption, and secondly, this reduction also means that they need to look for ways or means to recycle or reuse water. There is a lot of technology at the moment on how to achieve this. Now, for example, I'm talking about at the domestic level, there are already technology to recycle or to reuse sewage water. Now, what I mean is that at this moment, our sewage, which is coming from the toilet and from the kitchen, will go to the sewage treatment plant, okay, which are operated by the IWK. And once the water is treated, it will go to the rivers. Some of the discharge from these STPs or sewage treatment plants are not that clean enough to be released into the water resources or the rivers. And sometimes you have mechanical problems at the STPs, and the water and the sewage cannot be discharged at the right standards. This is one of the main problems facing this industry of sewage water treatment. What we need to do now is to find ways on how we could first treat this water and try to find ways on how we can use the treated water for domestic purposes. And in fact, there are already technologies which allow this. For example, in European countries, there is a technology called the BioCube, which allows water to be treated in very relatively small compartments for about 40 hours or so, and then this water will be treated so clean to either standard A or standard B, which means that it can be used at least for secondary purposes. We don't have to release that water into the river, but use it for secondary purposes. Secondary purposes meaning purposes which are not for drinking or for health purposes, drinking, showering, or washing your clothes or dishes. We can reuse this treated water for washing the car or for
flushing the toilet.
Flushing the toilet. Yes, this is correct. This is very correct. This is one thing that I would like to take my opportunity to say this. Every day, every time we flush the toilet, we are wasting between 4 to 6 liters of water. And this water is actually potable, meaning it can be used for drinking and showering purposes. Now that's a big waste when we use this water into the toilet. Okay, so we need to find other ways of replacing this water, and this technology is one of the ways that we can use to be applied in the toilet. The other thing is rainwater harvesting.
Mm-hmm.
Rainwater harvesting is actually an old technology, but it's not widely used in Malaysia.
It's only widely used among those living in a very rural area, because I've been to a very remote rural area, and that's one of the main ways for them to harvest water, clean water.
Yes, Arlene. And do you know why is that? Because these people, during many years ago, they didn't have the public water supply. So they had to save water. They didn't, some of them may have to walk a distance to the rivers to take water, or go to the wells to take water. So they have to find ways. So pressure tends to create that, tends to improve creativity. So these people have to create this water harvesting system, for example, gutters and all these tempayan, to make sure that they don't have to walk that much to the original water sources. So this is one technology that I think government should focus at.
Yeah. I want to highlight the new water in Singapore, where they use secondary water for consumption. What is your view on that? Do you think Malaysia should do that as well?
Okay, not secondary water. Actually, it's treated water.
Okay.
Now, in principle, each drop of water that we use every day is a treated water, but naturally we do not see it. But the water that we flush out of the toilet, sooner or later will come back to us. We will use that water because the amount of water is fixed, not only in Malaysia but all over the world, all over the globe. So we are actually reusing water. It's just that we do not know where does this water actually come from. Maybe from somebody else's toilet or from your own toilet. Okay. So this new water is a technology that we can of course apply. If the water is already clean, already treated, then there is no reason why we should not use it. There is nothing dirty or bad about it, because we are already using treated water. We are using new water every day.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is something that we have to apply in the country.
Mm-hmm. What kind of policy change that the state and federal level should adopt to somehow protect the Malaysia from having another water crisis?
Okay, in the long run, in the short run, we have to like I said earlier, we have to educate our people to understand the value of water, and this has also to be implanted in the education system. Children and students have to continuously be reminded about the fact that Earth is limited and it's important, and we have to use our water wisely. And what can we do to make sure that our water is sustainably managed at the individual level? That is one thing. The education system has to be sort of adjusted to that purpose. Okay, the other policy is that we have to enforce the present regulations or the legislation regarding water use. The monitoring has to be more regular, and the enforcement has to take place as much as possible. The other thing for the long term or for the long run, we have to look at the issue holistically. For me, water needs to be the guide for the development in Malaysia.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because it is very, very important. Now, what is our guide at the moment?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it's about economy. Okay, we need to increase, we need to improve our GDP. Now, if that is the guide, the risk is that we are going to sacrifice other natural resources in order to achieve that GDP.
Mm-hmm.
We have to remember that GDP, or gross domestic product, or our economic growth depends on how much we use our natural resources. Okay, doesn't matter how we use them in principle. Okay, but we need to achieve that GDP. Now this is quite tricky because sometimes we may use our natural resources unsustainably in order to achieve that figure.
I think,
Now,
I personally think that water and sustainability should be in the election manifesto for everyone who wants to be the leader of this country.
okay, that is quite on the political side. But of course, I mean, as far as politics is concerned, if you want to talk about where should our country be heading, I think water is a very important resource. We need to have water at all times. Like I said earlier, water crisis means we do not have enough clean water at a continuous rate, and that is about 200 liters per person. If we do not achieve this, then this will affect our social activities. Now, the government has to make sure that the policy focuses on water. I'm not saying economic growth is not important, but it has to be sustainable.
Is there any
What is it?
Is there any current policy that the government is trying to address the issue itself?
Okay, right now we have the National Water Resources Policy, and the National Water Resources Policy has stated that the water needs to be managed wisely. But I think there should be more than that. It should also state that water is the guiding criteria for the management of environmental resources in Malaysia. All natural resources, all economic activities should be targeted at maintaining water at a specific quantity, at a specific quality. Okay, that means whenever you do development activities or carry out economic activities, we have to take into account that quality and quantity of water. We have to stop doing economic activities at a certain level when it will affect that water quality and quantity. So water has to be the main guide for the development activities in Malaysia. GDP has to be guided by that also. We can have economic growth, but make sure whatever growth we want, whatever growth we have, the target of that quality and quantity, 225 liters per person per day, has to be achieved. We cannot destroy or affect that target for economic purposes. Economy has to be guided by basic resource, and that is water.
So, what about on the civil society level? Because I know you are from Ecoknights, and your organization, of course, specifically focus on key environmental conservation in this country or in this region as well. So, what is your view on that?
You mean the view on the
civil society side of trying to push forward a more sustainable and environmental friendly policies and also awareness on the ground?
Okay, I think there are two ways that the people can help to achieve this. First is doing their part on educating the people. Okay, but we want to talk about the so-called pressure that the people should put, is that the people should continuously tell what are the problems and also their point of view. Sustainability is about the good of the people, present and future generations. In order for us or for the government to help achieve this level of sustainability, then the people have to be more open. And at the same time, the government has to also be open to people to listen to their point of view about water consumption, about water problems. If we do not carry out this two-way communication or this consultation process, it is very, very necessary and very critical in achieving sustainable development, then we are going to have sustainable management of water. the government has to look at issues in a holistic manner. They have to look at it at various point of view. And normally I call this the 4E of nature resource management or even water management. 4E meaning first, enforcement. Secondly, engineering. Thirdly, economy. And finally, education.
Mm-hmm.
Now, enforcement is the shortest. You can get compliance in the shortest time by enforcement. Okay, which is the top level. But you have to use a lot of resources, a lot of money to also carry out enforcement, and the effectiveness is much shorter in general. At the end of the line is education. Education requires the least amount of money, but the effectiveness is much long-term. Between that, you have the economic approaches and also the engineering approaches. Now, let me explain this enforcement. Enforcement meaning we carry out enforcement activities to make sure that people will comply to the law, to the legislation in order to solve the water problem. Now, second approach is the engineering. We use engineering approaches to solve environment problems.
Mm-hmm.
That means this includes green technology or new engineering products in order to solve environmental problems. These things are like dams, gross pollutant traps, sewage water treatment. Okay, this is also costing a lot of money, but the effect might be much longer than the effect of carrying out enforcement. Now, the third approach is economic. Economic means you use economic incentives or economic disincentives. For example, economic disincentives. For example, if you use water for more water than a certain rate, then the rate or the bill will be higher. For example, okay, so that will be motivate people to use more water. Or, for example, for anybody who uses less water will be given certain discount.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, for example.
I want to, so we are towards the end of the show. I just want you to just express yourself, like what we should do. I mean, in the long run, as Malaysians, in terms of trying to change our habits, like what we should have in mind about the importance of preserving clean water.
I think if we are talking about mind, then we have to remember that water is not only the most precious natural resource, but it's very, very limited. If we can put this in our mind, then we will be very, very careful with water. Remember that what the effect of our wasteful consumption now will affect us in the future.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for expressing your view, and I think it's very important for us to be more sustainable and, of course, to preserve clean water in the world, not just in this region.
Thank you, Arlene, and thank you, Duran Asean. That's a very nice name for our radio channel.
Welcome, thanks.